I never thought I'd be here confessing this to you, but last night something happened that I can't erase from my mind. It's left me questioning everything I thought I knew about love, family, and myself. I've always tried to be a good person, a good wife, a good mother. But sometimes life doesn't go the way you plan. Sometimes you find yourself in a place you never imagined, a place where the lines between right and wrong blur, where the heart takes over and the mind just stops. Last night, I crossed. A line I never thought I'd cross, and now I'm left here staring at the pieces of my life, wondering how I'll ever put them back together. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about loneliness, about longing, about the choices we make when we feel like we have nothing left to lose. It's about the moments that change just forever. I'm Angela Cobb, and this is my story. Before I go on, I need to warn you. This story deals with mature themes. It's about family, love, and the mistakes we make when we're lost. If these topics make you uncomfortable, this might not be the story for you, but if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to understand the messiness of life and love, then stay with me. Because this isn't just my story. It's a story about what happens when we lose ourselves and what it takes to find our way back. So let's begin. Let's go back to where it all started too. The night that changed everything. Let me tell you about myself. My name is Angela Cobb. I'm 42 years old. On the outside, my life looks normal, stable, maybe even happy. But on the inside, I've been crumbling for a long time. I've been married to Enrique Franklin for 15 years. He's a good man, hardworking, reliable. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being partners. We became roommates, two people sharing a house, a bed, a life, but not really sharing anything at all. Enrique is always busy. He's a project manager and his job consumes him. Late nights at the office, off early mornings on calls, weekends spent catching up on emails. I get it. He's providing for our family, but sometimes I just wish he'd see me. Really see me. I've tried to talk to him about it, tried to tell him how lonely I feel, how much I miss the way we used to be, but he brushes it off. Angela, you're overthinking things. He'll say, we're fine, we're happy, but we're not fine. And I'm not happy. I'm a mother too. My oldest, Raphael, is 20. He's my son from a previous relationship. Then there's Finley, who's 12, and Brody, who's 9. They're my world, but even being a mom hasn't filled the emptiness inside me. I've always been the kind of person who needs connection. Real connection, not just surface-level conversations about schedules and chores. I want to feel seen, heard, loved. But lately, it feels like no one sees. Me, not Enrique, not even my kids. I've always struggled with insecurity. I guess it comes from my childhood. My parents were distant, they loved me, but they weren't the type to show it. I grew up craving affection, and that hasn't changed. Enrique used to give me that. In the beginning, he was everything I needed. He made me feel special, wanted. But over the years, that changed. The little things, the hugs, the compliments, the late-night talks. They just stopped. I've tried to fill the void I've thrown myself into being a mom, into keeping the house perfect, into being the wife Enrique expects me to be, but it's never enough, not for him, not for me. I thought about leaving, about starting over, but how could I? My kids need me. And deep down, I still love Enrique. I just wish he loved me the way he used to, so I stay. I smile. I pretend everything's okay, but inside I'm falling apart. And then there, Raphael, my firstborn, my baby. He's always been different from the others, more sensitive, more intuitive. He sees things others don't, and lately he's been the only one who seems to notice how I'm feeling. Raphael and I have always been close, maybe too close. He's my confidant, my shoulder to cry on. But I never imagined. I never thought. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the night it all started. The night I let my guard down. The night, everything changed. Let me tell you about Enrique. My husband, the man I fell in love with so many years ago back then. He was everything to me. Charming, attentive, full of life. I remember our wedding day, like it was yesterday, the way he looked at me as I walked down the aisle like I was the only person in the room, the way he held my hand during our vows. His voice steady and sure for better, or worse, he said, and I believed him. We had so many good years family vacations to the beach where we'd build sandcastles with the kids and watch the sunset together. Lazy Sunday mornings curled up in bed talking about our dreams he used to surprise with. Little things, a cup of coffee in the morning, a note in my lunchbox, a single rose on the kitchen counter. Those moments made me feel loved, seen. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Enrique's job became his priority. He's a project manager, and he's good at what he does, too good maybe. He's always on call, always working, always thinking about the next deadline. I get it. He's providing for us, but I miss him. The man he used to be. The man who made me feel like I was his whole world now. It's like we're strangers living under the same roof. We barely talk when we do. It's about the kids, the bills, the chores, the spark. We once had, it's gone, and I don't know how to get it back. Enrique loves me. I know he does. But love isn't just about saying the words. It's about showing up, about being present. And Enrique, he hasn't been present in a long time. Then there's Rafael, my son. My firstborn, he's 20 now. But I still remember the day he was born. Like it was yesterday, he was so tiny, so perfect. From the moment I held him, I knew I'd do anything for him. Rafael has always been different, sensitive, thoughtful. He's the kind of person who notices when you're upset before you even say a word. Growing up, he was my little shadow, always following me around, always wanting to help. He's always been closer to me than the others, maybe, because it was just the two of us for so long. But things changed when I married. Enrique Rafael was only 5 at the time, and I thought he'd adjust, but he never really did. He's always felt like an outsider in our family, like he didn't quite belong. I tried to make it easier for him, tried to give him extra attention, extra love, but it wasn't enough. He's always been searching for something, for approval, for affection, for a place where he feels like he matters, and I get that. I really do, because I've been searching for the same thing. Rafael and we've always had a special bond. He's my confidant, my rock when I'm upset. He's the one who listens when I'm lonely. He's the one who stays. He's always been there for me, in a way no one else has. But lately things have felt different. There's a tension between us, a closeness that scares me. I don't know how to explain it. I don't even know if I should. All I know is that Rafael sees me in a way no one else does. He understands me, and in a house full of people, he's the only one who makes me feel like I'm not alone, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the night it all started, the night I let my guard down, the night everything changed. Let me take you to a night that stands out in my mind. It was a Thursday, just an ordinary evening or so. It seemed I'd spent the day cleaning the house, helping the kids with homework, and making dinner. Enrique had texted earlier to say he'd be home by 7, but by 8 there was still no sign of him when he finally walked through the door. I was sitting at the dining table, the food cold, the kids already in bed. He didn't even apologize, just shrugged and said work ran late. I tried to keep my voice calm, but the frustration bubbled up. Enrique, this is the 3rd time this week. The kids barely see you. I barely see you. He sighed. Like I was being unreasonable, Angela. You know how it is. This project is a big deal. I'm doing this for us. For us. I snapped. How is this for us? The kids miss you. I miss you. You're never here. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for a moment I thought he might understand, but then he shook his head. You're overreacting. I'm doing my best. That was it, no apology. No promise to do better. Just, Dismissal, like my feelings didn't matter. I wanted to scream to throw something, but instead I just sat there staring at my plate, feeling more alone than ever. Later that week, I met up with my best friend, Delisa Keller. She's been my rock for years, the one person I can always count on to listen. We sat in her cozy living room sipping tea, and I finally let it all out. I don't know what to do. I told her I feel like I am invisible, like I don't matter to him anymore. Delisa reached over and squeezed. "Hand, have you tried talking to him?" "Really talking, I've tried?" I said, my voice breaking, but he doesn't listen, he doesn't see me. She didn't have any answers, no one does. But just being able to say it out loud, it helped a little. I couldn't help but think about how different things used to be. There was a time when Enrique and I were inseparable. I remember one summer early in our marriage when we took a trip to the mountain. Just the two of us, we spent the days hiking, the nights curled up by the fire talking. For hours, he'd look at me like I was the most important thing in the world. Now it's like we're strangers. And then there's Rafael. One evening he came over after work. Enrique was, of course, still at the office. The kids were in their rooms. And the house was quiet. Rafael and I sat in the kitchen just talking. He's always been easy to talk to. He has this way of making you feel like you're the only person that matters that night. He opened up to me about his own struggles. "I just feel lost," he said, running a hand through his hair like, "I don't know where I fit in with my job, with the family, with everything." I reached over and took his hand. "I get that," I said softly. "I feel the same way." He looked at me, then really looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes, understanding, compassion. Something I hadn't seen in Enrique's eyes in a long time. "You're always so strong, Mom," he said. "But you don't have to be not with me." Those words, they broke something open in me. Something I've been holding back for so long. We talked for hours that night. About life, about love, about the things we were too afraid to say to anyone else. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. But as much as I appreciated Rafael's support, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between us. Something I didn't want to name. Looking back, I think that was the moment it started. The moment I began to see Rafael not just as my son, but as someone who understood me in a way no one else did. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. It was a Friday night. I'd got out with a few friends, Delisa and some others. From work, we'd had a few drinks, laughed about old times, and for a little while I felt normal, like I wasn't just a wife or a mom, like I was still Angela. But when I got home, the house was quiet. Enrique was working late again, the kids were asleep, and the loneliness came rushing back heavier than ever. I texted Rafael. "Are you up? I could use some company," he replied, almost immediately. Be there in 20 when he arrived. I was sitting on the couch, still in my going-out clothes, a glass of wine in my hand. He looked at me, concerned. "You okay?" "Mom?" I shrugged. Just one of those nights. He sat down beside me and I poured him a glass. We talked for a while about his job, about my night out, about nothing and everything. The wine loosened my tongue, and before I knew it, I was saying things hadn't planned to say. "I just feel so alone." I admitted, staring into my glass. "Enrique's never here. The kids are growing up so fast, and I don't even know who I am anymore." Rafael didn't say anything at first. He just listened, and then softly he said, "I get it. I feel the same way sometimes." There was something in his voice, a vulnerability I wasn't used to hearing from him. It made me look at him differently, not as my son, but as someone who understood me, someone who saw me. The atmosphere shifted. It was subtle at first, a lingering glance, a touch that lasted a little too long, but then it wasn't subtle anymore. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the world. But before I could stop myself, I said it, "Rafael, can I show you something I've been feeling?" For a while, he froze. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the hesitation. But then slowly, he nodded. I reached out and touched his face, my fingers trembling. "You're the only one who understands me." I whispered, "The only one who sees me." He didn't pull away. He didn't say no. And that was all it took. What happened next? I can't bring myself to describe it in detail, not because I don't remember, but because it's too painful, too raw. All I can say is that in that moment, I wasn't thinking about Enrique or the kids or the consequences. I was just lost when it was over. We sat in silence, the weight of what we'd done hanging between us. Raphael looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Regret, confusion, fear. "Mom," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't," I said, my voice shaking. "Just don't." He left soon after, and I sat there alone, staring at the empty wine glass. In my hand, my mind was racing. My heart was pounding, and all I could think was, what have I done? But even as the guilt washed over me, there was another feeling, one I didn't want to admit. Relief for the first time in years. I didn't feel alone. And then, that scared me more than anything. That moment, it's etched into my mind every second, every breath, every heartbeat. I can't escape it, no matter how hard I try. When I reached out to touch Raphael's face, I felt him tense. His eyes searched mine, wide and uncertain, like he was trying to understand what was happening. For a split second, I thought he might pull away. I thought he might stop me, but he didn't. He hesitated. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle between what he knew was right and what he felt in that moment. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. It wasn't a decision, not really. It was something deeper, something neither of us could control, a need, a longing, a desperation, to feel something real in a world that had felt so empty for so long. What followed, I can't describe it in detail, not because I don't remember, but because it's too painful, too raw. It wasn't about physicality. It was about emotion, about connection, about the overwhelming sense of being seen and understood in a way I hadn't been in years. But even as it happened, even as I let myself get lost in the moment, there was a voice in the back of my mind, a voice screaming at me to stop, to think about what I was doing, to think about the consequences. I didn't listen. When it was over, we sat in silence. The air between us was thick with unspoken words. Raphael looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Regret, confusion, fear, maybe all of it. "Mom," he started, his voice barely audible. I kept him off. "Don't," I said, my voice shaking. "Just don't." He didn't say anything else. He just sat there staring at the floor, his hands clenched into fists. I wanted to reach out to him, to tell him it was okay, that we'd figure this out, but I couldn't, because it wasn't okay. And I didn't know how to fix it after what felt like an eternity. He stood up. "I should go," he said, his voice hollow. I didn't stop him. I just sat there watching as he walked to the door. His shoulders slumped, his head down. When the door closed behind him, I felt empty. The guilt hit me like a wave. It crashed over me, pulling me under, drowning me in shame and regret. What had I done? How could I have let this happen? But even as the guilt consumed me, there was another feeling, one I didn't want to admit. Relief for the first time in years. I didn't feel alone, and that scared me more than anything. The next morning I woke up, feeling hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left nothing but an empty shell. The guilt was there. Of course, it hit me the moment I opened my eyes, a heavy, suffocating weight on my chest. But there was something else too, something I didn't want to admit, a sense of fulfillment. I hated myself for it. How could I feel anything but shame after what I'd done? But the truth was, for the first time in years, I hadn't felt alone, and that was hard to let go of. I couldn't face Enrique. Not after what had happened. He'd come home late the night before, completely Unaware of the storm raging inside me, I pretended to be asleep, and he'd kissed my forehead before climbing into bed. That small, innocent gesture made me feel even worse. I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't judge me, someone who'd listen, so I called Delisa. She came over that afternoon, and the moment she walked through the door, she knew something was wrong. "Angela," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "What's going on?" I couldn't look her in the eye. I just sat there staring at my hands, trying to find the words, and then finally I told her everything. Her reaction? It wasn't what I expected. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just sat there silent, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. "Angela," she said. Finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "What were you thinking?" I shook my head. "I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I felt so alone. And he was there. He understood me in a way. No one else does." Delisa reached out and took my hand. "I get that," she said softly. "But this is dangerous for you, for him, for your family. You have to end this." Now I knew she was right. But the thought of cutting off that connection, of going back to feeling so alone, it terrified me. Meanwhile, Raphael was struggling too. He showed up at his friend Nico's house later that day looking like he hadn't slept. Nico took one look at him and knew something was wrong. "What's going on, man?" Nico asked, his tone cautious. Raphael hesitated. He didn't want to say it out loud, but he needed to talk to someone. So finally, he told Nico everything. Nico's reaction was immediate. "Raphael, this is messed up. You can't let this continue. It's not just about you. It's about your mom, your family. You have to end this." Raphael nodded, but he didn't say anything. He knew Nico was right. But he also knew how much his mom needed him, how much she was hurting. "I don't know what to do," Raphael admitted, his voice breaking. "I love her, she's my mom. But this isn't right." Nico put a hand on his shoulder. "You have to distance yourself, for both of your sakes." Raphael knew he was right, but the thought of walking away from his mom, of leaving her alone, it tore him apart back at home. I was falling apart too. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, about the guilt, the shame. Their leaf, it was all too much. I tried to distract myself. I cleaned the house. I cooked dinner. I helped the kids with their homework. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the weight of what I'd done. And then that evening, Raphael texted me. "We need to talk." My heart sank. I knew what was coming and I wasn't ready for it, but I also knew it was necessary, so I texted back, "Okay." And just like that, the next chapter of this nightmare began. After that text from Raphael, I knew things were about to change. I just didn't know how much we met at a park away from the house, away from Enrique and the kids. It was awkward from the start. Neither of us knew what to say. We just sat there on a bench staring at the ground, the silence between us louder than any words could have been. Finally, Raphael spoke. "Mom, we can't do this again." His voice was soft, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew he was right. Of course he was. Right, but hearing him say it, it made it real. "I know," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Raphael. I never meant to." I couldn't finish the sentence. There were no words to explain what I'd done. No words to make it okay. Raphael looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and frustration. "I love you, Mom. You know that. But this isn't right. It's not healthy for either of us." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I know, I don't know how to fix this." He didn't have an answer. Neither of us did. After that conversation, things between us changed. The easy closeness we'd always shared was gone, replaced by an awkward tension. We still talked, but it was surface-level, polite. Distant, it hurt more than I expected, but I knew it was necessary. At home, things weren't any better. Enrique had started to notice a change in me. I wasn't sleeping well. I was distracted, quiet. He'd ask me if I was okay, and I'd just nod and say I was fine, but I wasn't fine. One evening, he came home early, a rare occurrence, and found me sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. He sat down beside me. His expression concerned Angela. He said gently, "What's going on? You've been different lately." I wanted to tell him to confess everything and beg for his forgiveness, but I couldn't. The words wouldn't come, so I just shook my head. "I'm just tired." I said, "That's all." He didn't push. He just nodded and put an arm around me. "If you need to talk, I'm here." The kindness in his voice made me feel even worse here. He was trying to be there for me, and I was keeping this huge, terrible secret from him. The guilt was eating me alive. Meanwhile, Raphael was struggling too. He started spending more time away from the house, avoiding me as much as possible when we did see each other. The tension was palpable one night. He came home late, and I was waiting for him in the kitchen. "Raphael," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." He shook his head. "No, Mom, we don't. Talking just makes it worse." I wanted to argue to tell him we couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. But I didn't. I just nodded and let him walk away. The truth was, I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to make things right, and the worst part, I wasn't sure I deserved to. It all came crashing down one night, a night I'll never forget. Raphael had come over to the house. I don't even remember why. Maybe it was to talk. Maybe it was because we both felt that pull, that dangerous connection. We couldn't seem to break. Whatever the reason he was there, we were in the living room, sitting close. But not touching. The tension between us was unbearable. Neither of us knew what to say. Neither of us knew how to fix this. And then it happened. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me, maybe it was him. But suddenly we were in each other's arms. Holding, unlike we were drowning. It was wrong, so wrong. But in that moment it felt like the only thing that made sense. And then the door opened. Enrique stood there, frozen, his key still in his hand. His eyes went from me to Raphael and then back to me. I could see the moment it clicked, the moment he realized what was happening. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just sat there staring at him, my heart pounding in my chest. Raphael was the first to react. He stood up, his face a mask of guilt and panic. "Enrique, it's not what it looks like," he said, his voice trembling, but it was too late. Enrique wasn't listening. He took a step forward, his fists clenched. "Get out," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my house." Raphael didn't argue. He just turned and ran, leaving me alone with Enrique. The moment the door closed, Enrique turned to me. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. It's not what you think, hell." "Long, Angela," he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. I flinched. It was just one time." I lied, my voice breaking. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal. "One time," he repeated. "One time is enough." I wanted to explain, to tell him how lonely I'd been, how lost, but the words wouldn't come. Enrique didn't say anything else. He just turned and walked out of the room. A few minutes later, I heard the front door slam. He didn't come back that night or the next. When he finally returned, it was to pack his things. "I'm staying with a friend," he said, his voice cold and distant. "I need some time to think." I didn't try to stop him. I didn't have the right. Raphael didn't come back either. He stayed away, avoiding me at all costs. When I tried to call him, he didn't answer. When I texted him, he didn't reply. It was like he disappeared from my life completely. And then there were the kids, Finley and Brody. Could sense that something was wrong. They didn't know what had happened, But they knew things weren't the same. Enrique was gone. Raphael was gone. And I was a mess Finley. My 12-year-old started acting out. She'd slam doors, yell at me, refuse to dough hair. "Homework, why is Dad gone?" she demanded one night, her eyes filled with tears. "What did you do?" I didn't have an answer, Brody. My 9-year-old was quieter. He didn't yell or slam doors. He just withdrew. He stopped talking to me, stopped laughing, stopped being the happy, carefree kid he used to be. It broke my heart. I tried to hold it together for them, for myself. But it was hard, so hard every night. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind, the choices I'd made, the people I'd hurt, the life I'd destroyed. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know if I could, but I knew I had to try after everything fell apart. I knew I couldn't keep going the way I was. I was drowning in guilt, shame, and regret. I needed help. Real help. So I started therapy. It wasn't easy sitting in that room talking about my feelings, my mistakes, my pain. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also necessary. My therapist helped me understand why I'd made the choices. She didn't excuse my actions, but she helped me see the patterns in my life, the loneliness, the need for connection. The way I'd let myself become so lost, it was painful to face those truths, but it was also freeing. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to understand myself. One of the hardest things I had to do was write a letter to Raphael. I knew I couldn't fix what had happened between us, but I needed him to know how sorry I was. I sat down one night and poured my heart out onto the page. I told him how much I loved him, not as anything other than his mother. I apologized for crossing a line that should never have been crossed. I told him I understood if he needed space, but that I would always be here for him, no matter what. I didn't know if he'd read it. I didn't know if he'd ever forgive me, but I needed to say it. As for Enrique, it took time. A lot of time at first. He was furious, hurt, betrayed. He moved out and stayed with a friend for weeks. I didn't blame him. I'd broken his trust in the worst way possible. But eventually he came back. We sat down one evening, just the two of us, and talked. Really talked. I told him everything, how lonely I'd felt, how lost, how desperate for connection. I didn't try to justify what I'd done. I just wanted him to understand. Enrique listened. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just sat there taking it all in when I was done. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I don't know if I can forgive you, Angela, but I'm willing to try." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a guarantee. But it was a start. Rebuilding our marriage hasn't been easy. There are days when the anger and hurt still bubble to the surface. Days when I wonder if we'll ever truly be okay again. But we're trying, and for now that's enough. As for Raphael, he hasn't come back into my life the way he used to be, and I don't know if he ever will. But he did respond to my letter. He wrote back just a few lines, but it was enough. "I love you, Mom," he said, "but I need time. I understand that. I'll give him all the time he needs this." Isn't a happy ending? Not really. There's still so much pain, so much healing to do. But it's a beginning, a chance to rebuild, to grow, to learn from me mistakes. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'll never stop trying to be better for myself, for my family, for the people I love. And maybe that's enough. I'm not proud of what I did, but I've learned that love isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's messy, painful, and full of mistakes. But it's also about forgiveness, growth, and finding the strength to move forward. This journey has taught me that we're all human. We all make choices. Regret, we all carry burdens. We wish we could put down. But the beauty of life is that we can learn from our mistakes. We can grow. We can heal. If you've been through something similar, or if you're struggling with your own choices, know that you're not alone. It's never too late to seek help, to make amends, to start over. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I hope it's given you something to think about love, family forgiveness. They're never simple, but they're always worth fighting for. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button for more stories about love relationships and the messy, beautiful journey of being human. Thank you for being here. It means more than you know.